Let's travel to the rugged and misty landscapes along the North American Pacific coast, where towering cedar trees stand like ancient sentinels and the ocean crashes against the rocky shores. Here, in this land of endless rain and evergreen forests, there is a figure who dominates the myths and stories passed down through generations, a figure who is both mischievous and ingenious. This is Raven, the great trickster, the one who steals fire and the stars, who tricks the enemies of humankind and shapes the world through his cunning. Why is it that Raven plays such a prominent role in the myths of the northern tribes? Maybe it's because in this region, unlike the agricultural societies elsewhere, people weren't as concerned about keeping ravens away from crops. Here, Raven wasn't a pest. He was a presence, a creature of the sky who could be both a blessing and a curse. And in the tales of the northern tribes, Raven isn't just a bird. He's a trickster who can outwit anyone, even himself. For the tribes along the eastern edges of the Pacific Northwest, from the icy realms of the Inuit in the north down to the foggy coastlines of Northern California, Raven's stories weave through their cultural fabric. He's not just a character in their myths, he's a culture hero. In times of great need, Raven appears to reshape a world devastated by a catastrophic flood, gathering the scattered elements and combining them to recreate the earth anew. But being a trickster isn't all about success. Raven's cleverness often gets him into trouble, and just as often, his tricks backfire. Imagine him, feathers ruffled, caught in one of his own traps, or humiliated after a poorly thought-out scheme. Yet even in his mischief, Raven gives valuable gifts to the people. He invents the first fishhook, an essential tool for coastal tribes whose lives depended on the bounty of the sea. He teaches them how to weave fishing nets, ensuring that their catches will be plentiful, and he fills the rivers with fish to feed the people. Can you picture him swooping through the forest, planting fruits and scattering seeds across the land? It's through these acts that he transforms the landscape, not only providing food, but also making sure that people would have to work to survive. He doesn't give them everything on a silver platter. He creates a world where effort is required, where sustenance is earned. So, what do we make of Raven? Is he a hero or a troublemaker? The answer, of course, is both. His stories reflect the unpredictable nature of life itself, where things don't always go according to plan, and sometimes even the most brilliant schemes fall apart. But through his tricks and trials, Raven brings something essential to the world. He brings change, transformation, and even a little chaos. Think about it. Raven's tales are not just about teaching how to fish or plant fruits. They're about challenging the status quo, shaking things up, and reminding us that even when our plans go awry, there's always an opportunity to learn, adapt, and grow. Through his misadventures, Raven doesn't just entertain. He reflects the resilience and resourcefulness that have always been part of the human spirit. From the coastal rainforests of Alaska to the shores of Northern California, Raven's legacy lives on. His stories aren't confined to the past. They're echoed in the songs, dances, and oral traditions that continue to be shared today. He's the one who brought fire and light, who shaped the land, and who continues to remind us that the line between order and chaos is often a thin one. Let's step into a world where darkness stretches endlessly, where the sky is black and the earth is shrouded in shadow. In this place, there is no sun to warm the land, no moon to light the night. It's a world already formed but trapped in eternal gloom. And who is responsible for this? The light itself is locked away, hidden in a box that hangs on the wall of a powerful creator's house, kept out of reach. But there's someone else in this story, a mischievous figure who refuses to accept the darkness, who sees an opportunity where others see only despair. That someone is Raven, the trickster. Raven was sent to this shadowy world to spread fish in the waters and fruit on the land. But how could he fulfill his mission in a world where he couldn't even see his own feathers? The darkness made it impossible to find his way, let alone distribute food to the people. Hungry and frustrated, Raven began to search for a solution. He soon discovered the source of the light, a mysterious box in a house that was sealed shut from all sides. How could he get inside? Then he saw her, Every day, the daughter of the house's owner went down to the river to fetch water. Raven knew he could use her to gain entry, so he devised a cunning plan. One day, as the girl bent down to collect water in her bucket, Raven transformed himself into a tiny fish, or perhaps a pine needle or a leaf drifting on the surface. The girl scooped up the water, and without noticing Raven's disguise, she drank. And just like that, Raven became part of her, growing inside her until she gave birth to him in human form. Now Raven was inside the house as the beloved grandchild of the powerful man who controlled the light. But his mission was far from over. How would he get his hands on the precious box? He began to cry, day after day, until his grandfather, worn down by the child's relentless tears, allowed him to play with the box hanging on the wall. It was said to contain shimmering orbs that held the light of the world. Raven, now in the form of a curious and spoiled child, took the orbs out every day, rolling them around the floor and letting their light fill the room. Everyone grew accustomed to the child playing with the shining spheres, and that was exactly what Raven had been waiting for. Then came the day when Raven saw his chance. As soon as his grandfather handed him the orbs, Raven transformed back into his bird form. He grabbed the glowing spheres in his beak and flew straight up through the smoke hole in the roof. Imagine the scene. Raven, feathers gleaming with light, soaring toward the sky. But in some versions of the tale, there's a twist. As he burst through the smoke hole, the soot turned his feathers black, forever marking him as the Raven we know today. What happened next? There are many versions of the story. In one, Raven accidentally drops the orb, and as it hits the ground, it shatters. The pieces fly upward, forming the sun in the sky. In others, the orb breaks into countless fragments, creating not just the sun, but also the moon and the stars. In some versions, the sudden burst of light is too much for some people to bear, and they transform into animals, fish to be precise, diving into the waters to escape the brightness. No matter the version, the ending remains the same. Raven succeeds in his mission. From that day forward, the sun shines during the day, and the moon and stars illuminate the night. The world is no longer trapped in darkness. It is Raven who brought light to the earth, and he did it in the way that all tricksters do, by finding the cracks in the boundaries between worlds and slipping through them. But Raven's adventures don't stop with the sun and the moon. In another tale, he steals water from an old man who hoarded it all for himself. Using his cleverness, Raven tricks the man and flies away with the water held in his beak, creating oceans, rivers, and streams as he travels. Through these acts, Raven shapes the world, ensuring that people have what they need to survive. Raven's stories remind us that tricksters aren't just troublemakers. They are the ones who stir the pot, who bring change when things grow stagnant. He may be mischievous, he may even be selfish, but through his actions, the world transforms. By stealing light and water, Raven brings order out of chaos and ensures that life can thrive. So, when you see a raven perched on a branch, its black feathers glinting in the sunlight, remember that this bird carries the legacy of a trickster who defied the darkness, who crossed boundaries, and who, with a little mischief and a lot of daring, brought the world out of shadow and into the light. Picture the sweeping plains and rugged deserts of the American Southwest, where the sky stretches out like an endless canvas, dotted with stars. In this vast and untamed land, one figure stands out, a figure as wild and unpredictable as the landscape itself. This is Coyote, the great trickster of the plains, a being who is part human, part animal, and entirely mischievous. He is a shapeshifter, a master of transformation, who can be both a divine creator and a crafty deceiver. On one hand, he brings great gifts to humanity, creating the earth, animals, and even the first humans. Like the Greek Prometheus, he brings fire to mankind and places the sun, moon, and stars in the sky. But on the other hand, Coyote's greed and trickery often lead to trouble. He does what he wants whenever he wants, always seeking to satisfy his own desires. Let's start with a tale from Navajo mythology, where Coyote's dual nature as both a trickster and a culture hero comes to life. Imagine this. The first man is carefully placing each star in the night sky, one by one. Before him lies a detailed map on the ground, showing exactly where each star should go. The stars will form patterns that people on Earth can use to navigate, to mark the changing seasons, and to measure time. But this careful work is tedious, and it's taking a long time. Enter Coyote, who is watching all of this with growing impatience. He finds the process unbearably boring. Why waste time arranging the stars when there's a much faster way? With a mischievous glint in his eye, Coyote seizes the stars still lying on the floor and hurls them up into the sky. They scatter across the heavens in a chaotic jumble, random and wild. The stars that had already been placed remain in their positions, but the rest now twinkle haphazardly across the night. In a moment, Coyote has changed the sky forever. But what is his legacy here? By disrupting the careful order, he creates something new, something less predictable perhaps, but also more alive, more like the world itself, where things don't always go according to plan. In another myth, this time from the Coyote tribe, Coyote takes on a far more serious role. The world is facing a crisis. Humans are immortal and overpopulation is causing hunger and suffering. The leaders gather to find a solution, and one chief proposes a radical idea. Introduce death as a way to control the population. But the people recoil at the thought. They cannot bear the idea of losing their loved ones forever. After much debate, they reach a compromise. People will die, but only temporarily. They will return to life after a time. Coyote listens to this decision and shakes his head. This will never work, he says. It won't solve the problem. But no one agrees with him. They want to believe that death can be a temporary thing, that it doesn't have to be permanent. Then, the first person dies. The body is placed in a special house built by medicine men, and songs are sung for 10 days to bring the soul back. But just as the soul is about to re-enter the body, a powerful wind arrives, sweeping in from the west. It's the soul itself, seeking to return. At that moment, Coyote sees his chance. He leaps up and slams the door shut, keeping the wind and the soul outside. From that day on, death becomes final, an unchangeable part of life. But Coyote's cleverness comes at a price. Ever since that day, he has wandered the earth, always on the move, always hungry. No one will share their food with him, for he brought death into the world. In trying to solve a problem, he has created another. Yet in a strange way, he also becomes a culture hero. By making death a permanent part of life, he gives humanity a gift of a different kind, the knowledge that life is precious because it is finite. Coyote's tale is not just a story of a clever trick gone wrong. It is a lesson about the balance between life and death, order and chaos, creation and destruction. He reminds us that even in a world filled with trickery and deceit, there is a deeper meaning to be found. His actions, whether deliberate or accidental, bring about change that reshapes the world. So who is Coyote, really? Is he the hero who brings fire and light, or the villain who condemns us to die? The truth is, he is both. He reflects the dual nature of the world itself, sometimes kind, sometimes cruel. His stories are filled with contradictions, just like life. He teaches us that in a universe ruled by uncertainty, the trickster's way can reveal truths that a straightforward path never could. Coyote is not merely a character in mythology. He is a symbol of the human condition. He is the reminder that we must adapt, that we must learn to laugh at our missteps, and that sometimes even our greatest failures can lead to unexpected successes. When you hear the howl of a coyote at night echoing across the plains, remember that it's not just a cry. It's the voice of a trickster, a culture hero, and a constant companion in the great dance of life and death. In the next 2 lectures, we will delve into the role of the trickster in African mythology. African cultures feature a wide array of tricksters who act as cultural heroes, shaping the traditions and beliefs of various tribes. Unlike some mythological figures driven by altruism or a desire to help humanity, African tricksters are often motivated by personal desires, impulses, and cravings. Their actions, while sometimes beneficial to humans, are usually self-serving. These tricksters frequently appear in animal form, with some of the most well-known being the spider, who stands out as perhaps the most iconic and widespread trickster character. Other notable trickster animals include the hare, known for its cunning and speed, the tortoise, famous for its cleverness and slow but steady approach, and the jackal, whose resourcefulness and opportunism make it a natural trickster figure. Each of these characters plays a significant role in African folklore, offering lessons, humor, and moral teachings through their mischievous exploits.